in response to the devastating flooding that recently overwhelmed Borno State, leading to widespread destruction, including the displacement of wildlife and severe impacts on communities. The federal government of Nigeria has announced the allocation of N3 billion to each state. This fund is aimed at bolstering disaster management efforts and preventing future occurrences across the country. The Borno flooding crisis. Borno State, one of the hardest-hit regions in Nigeria, experienced heavy flooding that caused significant damage to infrastructure, homes, and local wildlife. The Borno Zoo reported that 80% of its animals were affected, with many displaced or in critical condition. Additionally, large portions of the state's agricultural land were submerged, further exacerbating the economic and humanitarian impact of the disaster. The flooding not only displaced thousands of residents but also endangered wildlife, with animals such as snakes and crocodiles escaping into neighborhoods, posing a serious threat to public safety. Federal government's N3bn allocation. In a swift response to this growing crisis, the federal government has approved N3 billion for each state to tackle flooding and related disasters. This financial assistance is intended to strengthen states' capacity to manage natural disasters by improving infrastructure, setting up emergency response systems, and investing in long-term disaster mitigation strategies. The funds will also be used to rebuild damaged areas, provide relief to displaced individuals, and assist in wildlife conservation efforts, especially in regions like Borno that have seen significant damage to their ecosystems. Addressing future flood risks. Nigeria's geographical location and changing climate have made it increasingly susceptible to extreme weather events such as floods. The federal government's allocation of N3 billion to each state is part of a broader initiative to prepare for and mitigate the effects of natural disasters in the future. States are expected to use these funds to strengthen flood prevention infrastructure, such as drainage systems and levees, establish and train emergency response teams, provide financial and material relief to flood-affected communities, develop long-term urban planning strategies to reduce the vulnerability of cities and towns, support wildlife conservation and rehabilitation efforts in areas where natural habitats have been damaged. Public reaction. The federal government's intervention has been met with a mix of relief and cautious optimism. Many see the N3 billion allocation as a necessary step to address the immediate impacts of the flooding, especially in disaster-prone states like Borno. However, there are concerns about transparency and accountability in the use of these funds, with calls for strict oversight to ensure that the money is used effectively. Residents in flood-affected areas are hopeful that the funds will lead to improved infrastructure and better preparedness for future disasters. Civil society groups have also urged state governments to engage local communities in the planning and execution of flood management projects, ensuring that the needs of vulnerable populations are prioritized. Kindly subscribe or follow Newsfront for more latest news.